Welcome everyone to the first day of Phase 3 here for the European Challenger Circuit. My name is Gormizer. Right over there is none other than Mifflin. And Mifflin, we're going to have a fun one because this is a match that actually isn't necessarily unique this year. We're getting kind of a rematch from the last playoffs here with Belt Slap and Smiley Face.
A big old salty run back. And you know what? I'm excited to see it. I think these are two teams that really do have a lot of talent on both squads. I mean, every time we introduce Belt Slap, it's almost as if I'm just reading an OG SPL roster. Let's go through it real quick. Julio, Johnny, Zeros, Trixtank, and Arkle. I mean, you wouldn't be wrong, or I wouldn't even make fun of you if you thought that was an SPL squad. And then Smiley Face also has this ton of talent on it. We've got Lamogal, Zalia,
Yep.
Brat, Silence, and Echrome. These are all very strong teams, all very strong players, rather. And I think that, you know what, Smiley Face may not have won in the playoffs recently, but I think they could come back and really show us today that they are ready to compete.
Well, they've done exactly what the open circuit is supposed to do, right? They've gone through, they played through the tumultuous weeks that they had to then qualify for the Challenger Circuit, to come in here. And now, unfortunately, you got to take on the big dogs once again. If you remember way back to those playoffs, they lost 2-1 to Belt Slap the first time, then they met them again in the lower bracket and lost 2-0 to them. So, like you said, maybe not winning against them, but they at least have that history coming through for them. So, the good news is Smiley Face might know a little bit of what to expect. But things are different now than they were during those playoffs, Mifflin. I mean, just, all of the changes that we've had recently, there is nothing I think is going to feel the same between these two teams.
I mean, the meta's shifted just completely, right? I mean, before the playoffs or during the playoffs, Freya relatively didn't exist. Olderun wasn't a pick. These magical ADCs really have shaken up the meta in a huge way. Cthulhu got added. Persephone's been getting through a lot. Not today. Smiley Face are going to ban it out. But in reality, the meta is so different, we might even see that just it's not going to favor Belt Slap anymore.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Belt Slap were, just phenomenal at what they did, right? I mean, you get tricks on a comfortable tank. You have a lot of comfort, I think, out of the duo lane in general, but Johnny was able to pick pretty much one of 3 assassins, and he would be fine. So maybe even happier now is the jungler coming here for Belt Slap, just because I think he's got even more of a repertoire to pull out of.
Yeah, what was Johnny playing before? He was playing Bakasura. Well, that one got better. He was playing Nemesis. That one got better. Well, he was playing Kali. She's still pretty freaking good, man. I mean, I'm sure Johnny's absolutely fine with these meta shifts. So maybe I was wrong to point out that Belt Slap might be a little bit weaker, because when Johnny's rolling, when he's really getting off to a good start, that is Belt Slap at their peak. Even surrounded by all these veteran players, it's almost always going to be Johnny that's shining through for me.
And I'm actually very happy to see, because that Morgan band down there, well, that's one person and one person only. That is targeted at Zeros. And that's kind of where the other conversation goes. We've been talking a lot about the magical carries that come in as you see Freya banned out. Olderun notably not banned away, even though we've seen that a lot in the Pro League lately. It's one of those things that you have to then pick up maybe a physical hunter if you want that physical damage somewhere else to go, or a physical hunter, they're all physical, to then go to the mid lane. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be the dynamic Belt Slap go for. Right now they have the Sobek. But Smiley Face, take away that Bakasura you had just highlighted. Not only did Johnny play it when it wasn't that great, but now that it's even better, I think it's a good call to try and strip that away from the jungler's hands.
I do like it a lot. I am surprised to see that Belt Slap do recognize the strength of Magical Hunters right now with that Freya ban, but then instead of taking that Olderun in the top pick, which has been favored in the SPL, instead they're going for that Sobek. It might be just because Sobek is a very strong flex, and he's going to be able to likely go into the solo lane or support, force Smiley Face to make that 50-50 guess on that second round of bans. Ao Kwong getting locked in, on the other hand. That's spicy. This is a god that a lot of people on the Reddit or on social media have been speculating is going to be very, very strong with these recent magical item changes. And we haven't really had a chance to see it in the SPL, the SOC, or the SEC. I'm glad that we're going to get to experiment with it a little bit here.
Yeah, typically when you get to talk about mages that utilize attack speed, it is the Freya, it's the Olderun, the people who you're going to expect to kind of go into the ring build more often than not. But Ao Kwong was like on that tip of the conversation where everyone's like, well, hey guys, everybody kind of forgets about him, but the man has an execute, he can shred you, like, he's not terrible. So I'm excited to see what Belt Slap are able to do with it, because this is either going to be the proving grounds. I mean, you have to think about it. As you had highlighted, they were playing Nemesis before Nemesis kind of became the thing here, now that we see it in the Pro League the last couple of weeks. So I think this Ao Kwong, maybe this is going to be like right on the cusp of discovery, and this could be the one that proves it. But the Olderun locked in there for Smiley Face thereafter. Vamana, Tier taken away from Belt Slap. Chiron of all things. I think Aggro is probably happy to see that Chiron's getting some respect out there. And, I mean, based on that, maybe another mid-esque, carry that comes through, or Hunter that comes through in the Neath.
Yeah, I think it is fair to assume that Olorun is very likely going to go into the duo lane. Olorun's wave clear in the early isn't really all that strong. His survivability to ganks not that great until he gets the Sanctified Field. So you want to stick him somewhere he can just farm up freely. Duo lane's just about the best place to farm if you're worried about getting ganked. So this Agni coming through, Smiley Face not really going to hide their hand at all. I'm surprised with the Ao Kuang pick because normally when Ao Kuang was meta back in Season 4 or Season 5, he was running this very mage-centric build. You were building a stacking item, Book of Thoth, you go Doom Orb into Obsidian Shard, Soul Reaver. But with recent itemization changes, I'm thinking we might see a more auto-attack-centric Ao Kuang. Ring of Akate comes to mind, Telkine's Ring, even Demonic Grip. If that's the playstyle we see from him, this Ao Kuang, the second he gets 2-3 items complete, could very easily solo Gold Furies, Pyromancers. This is a guy who can very easily just make objectives happen on his own.
Well, he's going to be alongside a really strong team. I mean, you're talking about Peel. Not only does he have his own escape, but then Sobek can peel for you. Amma can peel for you. Thoth might not peel for you in the conventional way, but he'll kill him so they can't chase you. Either way, I think Beltslap are definitely playing into their strengths here. How do you feel about the Olorun Agni combo coming in? Having two mages come through, it's something that's honestly kind of been the norm. If you can't get the Chiron, you can't get the Neath. Uller maybe comes up in that list of hunters that you could take into mid again, but mages have been doing just fine, and Smiley Face seemed confident in Agni of all things.
I mean, Agni's been shown to be a pretty strong pick. He's about the golden standard for long-range poke. He's got decent engage from a range. That bomb stun is a deceptive engagement for your squad. I'm worried about how well they're going to be able to keep both these guys alive. They're both very susceptible to ganks, and their backline peel isn't nearly as strong. If Olorun pulls a lot of the attention, it might let Agni flourish, but if both fall, it's going to be pretty hard.
We'll have to see if he's going to be on fire this game or if they're going to put him out on the side of Beltslap. I'm excited to see it, though. Bratz was one of the players, and most notably, people, if you remember him, it was the Vulcan play that really kind of blew everyone's mind during the playoffs, because it's just like, you know, you're picking this god that no one plays, and you're making him look phenomenal against some of the best teams that we've seen in Europe. So it was very impressive as they're taking a little bit of poke early on. I think that's something that Smiley Face have done a lot. Specifically silenced E-Chrome. They don't mind being aggressive, and I think Beltslap is a team that you kind of have to be willing to get aggressive against early on, because otherwise they just start to run away with everything, Mifflin. At least it feels that way.
I mean, a lot of the times that's, again, because of Johnny. Maybe that's my jungler bias coming through once more, but when he's playing these late-game hyper carries, Beltslap is always just letting him free farm the jungle. We even see Zeros, who's traditionally one of the most selfish farmers out of the mid lane, is still allowing Johnny to clear out back camps very often. He's just making sure that he's splitting waves, and then once Johnny gets to level 12, gets his second relic online, he really starts to put the pressure on, and he might be able to do it a little bit earlier on. Instead of going for the defensive relic, Johnny does decide to pick up Blink, which is going to allow him the second he hits 5 to punish literally anyone on Smiley Face that doesn't have beads.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I think the Ao Kuang, out of all of this, is the one thing that is still kind of in the proving grounds, right? I mean, we've seen Trix Tank play Sobek before, and we've seen Sobek in this duo lane. We know what it's going to provide. Everybody else is playing something that has been in this role, if not in the last couple of weeks, we've seen it this year at least. So it's interesting to have this Ao Kuang come out, because it feels like it is something that Johnny, again, can maybe prove a point with. And it's going to be dangerous. I mean, Agni has a dash. There's a lot of maybe control there, but it's going to be Trix Tank right now from the duo lane who's trying to get aggressive. Uses his Blink to try and get the pluck. Forces at least a beads early on, so you can still feel that standard Beltslap, well, kill lust. They just want blood.
Yeah, you call it kill lust, I'll call it disrespect. Beltslap is the type of team that is going to run you down until you prove to them that, well, maybe we have to think about our approach. Until then, they're just going to continue looking for that early aggression. Taking off the beads from Olin there is pretty nice, but it's not really going to help him out too much with jungler ganks. By the time Johnny heads over there, he's likely going to be waiting till level 5, so he really won't have time to do it while those beads are still down. The Olin has to be worried about another Sobek pluck, but short of that, avoid that for the next minute and a half, 2 minutes, he should be just fine.
You know, I've been sitting here so excited about the Ao Kuang that I completely forgot to think about the Bakasura that's on the other side. And that was a nice little fresh reminder there in mid lane. How much damage Baka can put out. I think also showcasing how much damage can get returned onto him if you decide to jump in on Zeros. It's a very dangerous game to be playing because you can stick to him, you can melt them down once he finishes, you know, like a hastened maybe later. But as of right now, he has to be very careful with that aggression. And I think that's a weird statement to make, right? You want to be aggressive, but you just got to be a little careful. You can't be diving too deep just yet. But it doesn't seem like Belt Slap understand that that is a thing they need to slow down on, especially Trix Tank is already going to put some pressure over here onto the purple buff. And a lot of the time when he does this, it is, you know, much like you said, like he knows there's beads down, he knows he could potentially force a shell if he needs to. They're just going to force you to stop farming efficiently.
Yeah, Trix Tank is just moving up to be as annoying as possible. I mean, even Arkle is saying to him, well, you know what, I don't really think we have much kill potential here. I'm going to go ahead and clear out my own buff. But meanwhile, Trix is just sitting around this jungle, making sure that Olarun can't farm it up safely. I like this play. You see stuff like this from PBM a lot. Aurora likes to make this exact same play. It's just trying to put some pressure on and make sure that you're not farming easily. Meanwhile, Arkle's getting a lot of solo farm himself and establishing a lead.
And being able to get that, I mean, it's still a little bit, like, what, 100, maybe a little less, in favor of Smiley Face right now, but for the most part, you're getting the farm where it needs to go. The Hunters, more specifically the carries, I guess I should say in this case, are getting that smidge ahead. And that's where, you know, I started looking at it. We've mentioned that, you know, Ao Kuang, now level 5, potentially going to be a big deal. Looks like he's trying to come over to the duo lane, has that blink available. How much can this Sanctified Fields make a difference? If he hits level 5 right now, he's not going to be able to, and that's going to be the dash in, the pluck, the lockdown. So far looking good, but it's huge return damage from Echrome. Not enough to get a kill, but showcases why Olarun is just so prominent right now. Didn't have his ult, maybe could have saved his life, but it's first blood for Johnny here, showing Ao Kuang's gank potential early on.
I mean, that was all Johnny's damage. That was 100% shred. Well played from Echrome to almost turn it around. He didn't have any completed items. He didn't have your ultimate, as he highlighted. I mean, there's so much that he's going to be able to do. And Olarun has a similar value as Freya. He's going to pop off in the late game. He's going to scale very well the second he finishes Ring of Kate. And my favorite saying, when you kill a Freya once, or you kill an Olarun once, is that's not going to be enough. I don't care if he's 2 or 3 levels down at the 10-minute mark. The second he gets these items online, he'll be able to swing hard.
And right now, Trix Tank, I think, feeling that one in all forms of truth. As Echrome comes back to lane, immediately gets the kill with the help of some lockdown from Silence. And that causes some danger for Argyle, right? The damage isn't going to be enough to maybe burst him down completely, but you have to be careful. Now Sanctified Fields is online. He can slow you down. He can make sure that you are, well, again, still solidly locked in place. If Silence isn't going to do it himself, you can still win the 1v1 there as the Olarun. I just think it's so solid, and much like I would even compare to regular Hunters, it almost is entirely time-based. It's just when can you get your items online?
I agree. Arkle's really got to just get his Atalanta's bow up as quickly as possible, hopefully before Ring of Kate, but it's very unlikely that that happens because Arkle hasn't even started up on his boots just yet. As far as trade potential against Magical Hunters, you either want to do it before the Magical Hunter gets any of their items online, Hunters, standard Hunters. We got to come up with a new name for Magic Hunters. It's so weird to have to preface it and then talk about the actual Hunter. But they hit their power spike a little bit earlier on. At level 1, a standard Hunter should be able to win a trade against just about any of the magical ones that are in the meta right now, barring maybe a Freya. So if you can shut down Echrome in the early, that's one of the best ways to make sure that you transition well into the mid-game. But Echrome getting a return kill for himself brings the level back to parity. They're both level 6 in that duo lane, and Olarun's going to power spike much sooner. His power spike's going to be a lot stronger. His lifesteal is going to be a lot harder to deal with. And in the team fights, I mean, Sanctified Field might just be the best ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, giant, nice, massive rectangle that's going to help slow down your opponents. You get a little bit of a buff while you're in it. I can't think of any negatives overall of being able to use that, especially against a team with as much engage as Belt Slap has. But my eyes are gravitating. I say Ring of Kate, almost immediately I go next to Olarun's icon and just look at where he is so far, tier 2. But I have to look back towards Johnny, because you had kind of mentioned we're used to seeing him maybe go a little more ability-based. It's where a lot of his poke has been. But building up right now into this ring, more than likely Hecate coming out for him, do you think that's going to synergize well with him, specifically, you know, with how it interacts with his 2?
It will certainly work, and it's going to help him out a lot with just getting his burst off quickly. Very often, Ao Kuang, at least in the old meta, wouldn't even really channel his 2 for auto attacks. You'd use your 2, use your 3, get that 1 Dragon Call on it, and then shoot out the actual ability afterward. But now that he's going this ring build, I really think it's going to be objective focused, and it's going to mesh incredibly well with the Typhon's Fang.
Well, speaking of sanctified fields, Echrome showing that it's not just good to engage on people, but also to disengage in the event that you're scared of Trix Tank. I think everybody has a right to be at this point, based on what we've seen from Beltslap. Undefeated through Phase 1 and Phase 2 in their regular seasons, so it is definitely not something that you're maybe looking forward to as Smiley Face. You're going to be the first team to be able to knock a loss in their column if you can take it, but as of right now, it's still just trying to figure out how aggressive they want to get. The longer this game goes on, and I would say maybe patiently like this, it might not favor them, but we'll have to hold that thought in that conversation. Trix Tank does pull back in time. I was hoping I would see a Bakasura jump in, something that would maybe change the pace a little bit. But it seems, again, they recognize how dangerous Beltslap is, and they just don't want to go in on the side of Smiley Face.
It's interesting to see that Bakasura is looking for so many ganks. He's been hovering around the mid lane, he's been hovering around duo lane, and he's starting to fall behind because of it. Now he's looking at about a half-level deficit against Johnny, where normally Bakasura is just this farm monster, just waiting for that mid to late game around level 10, 11, 12, and then he starts to come online. You really want to get that secondary katana, maybe a hasten, maybe you even move into towards stone cutting. You can get just about any of them. But instead, he's playing this very aggressive style, trying to help out his team. And I think he really understands now, Serega Zek, that he's not supposed to be the carry this game. He's trying to facilitate Echrome and make sure that he gets to a point where Olorun can really start to pop off.
Well, now it's Johnny's turn to try and look for something over here. Nope, he comes down, Sentry Wards, and gets on out of there. Going to be able to slow it down with the rotation from the Bakasura and the Agni. Looking like it could result in something, but it's just going to be those nice Oracle Harpies. I actually do want to ask you, though, specifically going back to Bakasura, not just a kind of a farm monster early on, but you get the Golden Blade, you typically see like a Hasten Katana, and with the way things are, a lot of these katanas give movement speed, so you can sometimes see people skip getting boots. He's gone for the attack speed boots here. Do you like the way that he's, itemizing so far?
This is how I build Bakasura. I think it just feels a lot nicer. You get a huge burst of movement speed rather than having to build into it slowly, so you can get your rotation pass a lot earlier on. This build really does help you out if you want to look for ganks in the early game. If you want to get involved a little bit earlier on, this build is much, much faster. But as far as late game viability and how really good is it comparatively, the Katana build is going to scale much, much better. It's almost as if really, you get to skip buying your boots, which means you won't have to sell them late game for the Elixir of Speed. Well, you just have all the katanas. You can get your Elixir of Speed pretty early on if you want to, the second you tick over to level 15. Or you can just continue building in, and you're not really sacrificing too much in terms of movement speed.
Well, Silence looking to come back to the duo lane. I feel like the setup is constant here. Everyone in the duo lane right now continually looking for someone to lock down. And Silence can get the stun here. Well, I would have expected them to go in, but instead they're spotting out Johnny and maybe trying to just retaliate what he's going to do. He's going to get aggressive, rooted now by the Terra, and that's going to be her ult coming through. Silence looking to get aggressive. Arkle forced into the ult, and Sanctified Fields is going to be awaiting him as he comes down. You can see the snipes are slow, so he's waiting for the timer to come through, but that's going to be Bratz getting the kill. Trix Tank now looking to get locked down. The stuns aren't enough, but there's still a Bakasura ready to deal damage to, and Serega is going to be able to pick up that one. Now, looking to chase him down in the jungle. Good dash from Zeros. Johnny's still looking to potentially go in. It's a 2v4 here. And it looks like they're just trying to find the safe way out. Amaterasu over here as well, and Gold Fury going to be started up by Smiley Face.
Yeah, they have to do it. They committed so many to rotating over. The Soul Lane or TP's in, so they either want to look for more fight or look for the objective. It's a little bit concerning to me that they're deciding to back off, as the majority of Smiley Face was healthy there. It was going to be a 5 versus 3. Johnny had already used the majority of his cooldowns. A lot of them are pretty close to but Smiley Face want to take the small win, go back to farming. And clean play, truly. I feel bad for Arkle. He went up into the air and he landed into Sanctified Field, Regurgitate, 3 bombs, teleporting in Cerberus. My man wasn't getting out of that alive, barring a 5-man DC from Smiley Face.
It's not often you get to look down and see the danger of 5 hungry sharks waiting for you, but I guess he now knows what that experience is going to be like. It's just a little inconvenience, but I think showcases where Smiley Face are going to be able to find these victories. It's maybe not in the full 5-on-5 late game fights. It is these small picks that we're seeing more mid game. It's a little slow down compared to the pace I think we're used to seeing, where maybe that pick could have happened, I would even say maybe 5 minutes ago, where you could come over. But they're riding their power curve pretty well here as they hit this level 12, level 13 mark. And now it's going to cause Belt Slap to be, I think, just a teensy bit more cautious instead of just being able to jump in confidently the way Trickstank usually likes to.
Gore, I can't agree with you there, man. I don't think this is any slower than we're used to seeing. Maybe you forgot that we're in Europe right now, but
yeah,
4
you're right.
kills in 12 minutes, that's a treat when you're watching the boys from the EU. And honestly, both teams kind of fit that pace. If you tell me what Smileyface is looking for, I'd say it's likely going to be that late-game team fight. They want to make sure that they can use that sanctified field. Mogao is going to have a fantastic time engaging. Silence has got some of the best backline peel and re-engage in the game. And Belt Slap have their own hyper carriers that they're looking to get towards the late game. I mean, it's the most European thing I've ever seen, but I really do think that this game is going to be decided at the 20 to 25-minute mark.
I always forget how different the regions are. If we were in North America, there would be 13 kills in these 12 minutes, and we'd be wondering what was going on, talking about how we didn't have time to analyze anything, especially now as, well, again, it looks like they want to fight, but not enough on the side of Belt Slap. They're being very patient with it. Julio may be in a little more danger than anybody else, but it's the pressure in the mid lane, this 3v3 that's now started up. And this is where the question comes through. Trickstank, this Sobek, usually really good at going in, finding a pluck, and then almost guaranteeing a kill off of that. How do you feel about the way that Trix has been involved in this compared to Silence, who has been able to get all these roots, all of these stuns, and set up way more kills so far?
Well, Trix has been really diverting his attention towards E-Chrome. Almost every single pluck he's thrown out has found its home onto the Ola run, but there hasn't been enough follow-up, and the one time Belt Slap looked like they might be able to find an engagement, 5 members of Smileyface showed up 30 seconds later. I can't really fault Trickstank on that, because once all 5 members are grouped up from Smileyface, Silence should be getting more value just about every time. That's just the nature of Terra's kit.
Gold Fury pulled, half health now. As Belt Slap try to contest that one. That's going to be regurgitated, though, onto Zeros. Forced to fall back. Saraga's not going to be able to get a lot of kills. The snipe's going to be falling down from Rom, looking for that last shot into the back line, but it's not going to connect. Instead, Trickstank is the one that goes down here. Zeros too low to re-engage. So it's Julio and Arkle trying to run the show. Still has the dazzling offense and is going to use it to go in for the stun, but CC immunity galore. Beads used from E-Chrome and the ult from Mogao. At least going to eat that one up. Julio still has enough zone potential to lock away Smileyface here, but they are lurking in the dark, waiting to come back in. Zeros is now out of the fight. Johnny's hanging around still with Julio, but they're more or less on their own here, and Johnny's going to have to turn this one around. The stun just a little too late from Bratz, and I think that's going to be the full disengage from Smileyface.
I mean, Smileyface played that incredibly well. They took the one engagement that they could, tried to force a little bit more. They couldn't quite get the gold free, but they saw that Belt Slap were kind of lingering around it once they got that technical TKO onto Smileyface. They used that Terra heal to resustain. They had complete vision on the gold, moved back in, and forced Belt Slap to back up. It's clean play, but it cost them a lot of resources. Now, Bakasura had to use his beads. Olarun had to commit every single one of his actives. They're not going to be very safe in this continued team fight, so I don't imagine we're going to see Smileyface regroup and try and force an engagement, but we might see Belt Slap do that. They might be able to group up around this gold free, force Smileyface to come in and take an engagement when the majority of their resources are down.
You know, I know the health bar is full, but this Gold Fury at this point has to be just bruised and beaten, and maybe a little uncomfortable. I mean, we've seen it twice now, 3 times, I think, actually, including that last one. Get pulled, taken to about half health, and then immediately pulled off from that team, just because the threat of the steal exists, and I think Johnny kind of showcasing that one. But it's almost favoring Smileyface. I mean, they come in, they get that one pick, and because of it, they're starting to get ahead. I mean, look at the levels. There's one in the jungle, one in mid, and while there isn't necessarily a huge lead in the duo lane, that Typhon's Fang coming online for E-Chrome makes me start to think this Ola run's going to maybe be a little more prominent unless we see Arkle step up.
But Arkle did just pick up the Rage, and that's going to be a pretty nice power spike for him.
Oh,
with a little bit of RNG, a little sprinkling of salt in there. Maybe you just land 5 crits in a row and win an engagement out of pure luck.
Well, it's aggression onto Mogao this time. It's taken forever to burn through him, but burn through him is exactly what they're doing. The execute finally going to come through, and up in the air is Johnny. Now, if he wants to re-engage, no, disengage. So they're not going to dive the tier 2 tower just yet. Still a little too early for that one. And luckily there's a nice, tasty silenced lockdown in the mid lane. They're going to be able to engage, or disengage, I should say. Silenced roots everyone, gets himself under a tower. But now this finally feels like a clean Gold Fury pull for Belson.
Yeah, watch what Johnny does to it. See how that health bar used to exist? No longer,
Oh
because
my
that's
God.
the damage you're going to get with this auto-attack-centric build. Sure, Smiley Face pick up Pyromancer. They should be able to get it for free, barring Julio steals it away. But that's not going to be a value trade. And right now, this Ao Kuang is doing pretty insane damage, but he's got no penetration in his build just yet. Imagine he picks up Obsidian Shard, Soul Reaver, Typhon's Fang, anything that's going to help him out. It took him 20 auto attacks on that Cerberus to really get him in that threshold to find the execute. Now it might take 10, and I know 20 is not even that much when you're attacking as fast as Johnny is right now.
So, speaking of Typhon's Fang, I have been hyping that item up a lot the last week, and a lot of it was, think of the lifesteal, right? When you add it with Hecate, if you have like a Bancroft, no matter what you put it with, it's really good because its passive increases the magical lifesteal you're going to have by 40%. But it's that second sentence that you see down there, Mifflin, that blew my mind, and it blew my mind yesterday. The lifesteal, double it, is converted to power. So like 10% is now 20 power. I think it's 15% here for Typhon's Fang. So that's 100 magical power off of this item. Like, it's a pretty big spike. Do you think it's something that can work well with this Ao Kuang, or do you want to continue seeing him go into the rings?
Here, I'll answer your question with another question. Tell me one god you wouldn't want to build Typhon's Fang on. I'll wait, because I couldn't come up with one. That item is so strong, dude. It works on literally everybody, and all the itemization that you're looking at on magical hunters or even just magical gods in general are going to work towards it. You could get the magic boots of the Magi. That's 7% lifesteal right there. You pick up Hecate, you get a ton more lifesteal there. Typhon's Fang has lifesteal on its own. You're going to be expanding on your power from there. I mean, it synergizes so incredibly well. I almost want to equate it to the Exodia. Just get that entire lifesteal tree. And I've seen some Anubis's build Pythags with it. I mean, things are looking disgusting.
You draw that 5th card, and their face, everything just gets obliterated from that point forward. And that's what Echrome is hoping to do here. I spent that entire time trying to think of a single mage that I wouldn't like that on, by the way, and yeah, I couldn't come up with a single one. I think, no, they're not even. Like, I can't even try to choose a fringe pick that's going to come through. Everybody just benefits from it so well. Now Echrome looking to try and benefit from it as best as he can. That's going to be the Aegis. Johnny comes through and burns him down. The beads and Aegis both used. Snipes from Arkle coming into Saraga. This Bakasura just trying to run away. Again, both relics going to be used. Luckily, that wall is going to stop him from getting eaten up. Bratz is rotating in. Same thing for Silenced. But I don't know if they can turn this around. They're going to try to lock down Trick's Tank, but he goes lurking into the waters. Now he sees CMU and he gets a good pluck there. Again, just to lock down Silence, keep this damage going. Julio's back in. Dazzling Offense is available, but everyone's under the tier 2 tower if you're Smiley Face. Doesn't look like a place for Belt Slap to engage, so they're going to do whatever they want in this side of the jungle. Potentially take a tier 1 over there and left, and just be happy with the farm they're stripping away.
It looked to me like Echrome was just a little bit hesitant to use the Sanctified Field. He knows how important it is in the team fight, so he didn't want to waste it on a 1v1 skirmish, and he just kind of lost out on his life because of it. Arkle gets a little bit lucky with his crits. I think he landed 3 in a row. That's just enough to do Echrome's health bar in about 3 autos, so might as well just take that dub. And that's one of the strengths that come with these physical hunters. They're able to itemize in towards crit this early on in their build. I mean, sure, Olorun gets crit himself, but it's not nearly as strong. Olorun's benefit is that he has this huge teamfight ultimate, and he's got a lot more consistent damage. That said, when you're getting lucky, Arkle's making it look like maybe just normal hunters might be the way to go.
I mean, as of right now, he's been hitting consistently, and of course what we've seen in terms of Tower Siege, I think is going to be very solid, but it's gonna, I think my eyes are when that rage gets fully stacked, right? When he has all of that crit chance stacked up, how much damage we see from him versus how much we're going to see from Echrome. Because right now, Echrome still sitting, what is that, 600 ahead, but, you know, that can change in just one shot with a fully stacked rage, so you don't have to worry too much about it as we get going on. Especially now that Arkle has that 1 level lead, is kind of making up for that level lead that's in the jungle over there. This Bakasura did go into the farm, as you had kind of highlighted earlier, what he likes to do, and now that we're 21 minutes in, he's trying to be more of a part of things, but it kind of feels like, unfortunately, Saraga just can't jump in and stick to people the same way we're used to seeing.
Look at that damage. Just
Jeez.
Absolutely beautiful. We love to see it. And instead of going towards a standard pen item, Johnny decides he wants to really muscle his way into a little bit more attack speed, and he picks up the Toxic Blade, which is going to have a nice matchup. If he's able to land some autos into Echrome, he might just win the auto attack trade.
Well, right now, Fire Giant's at half health here. You don't have Johnny's DPS on it to burn it down, but it doesn't matter. That DPS is elsewhere. Silence getting melted and executed here. Johnny up in the skies, gets to choose his next target and jumps immediately onto the Bakasura and onto this Ola run. Erased out of there, a double kill, 5 for 5, all on the back of Johnny, and he's still looking to try and chase some more. Finally, they're out of there. At least Smiley Face seemed to be. But guess what? The Fire Giant still in jeopardy. And with Johnny here this time around, Trix Tank doing the zone, it doesn't look like anyone from Smiley Face is going to be able to get close enough in time.
Look, this is exactly how Belt Slap loves to play. We get to the 20-minute mark. All right, guys, we're at our power spikes. Let's look for, I don't know, a pick. And then immediately they go into another objective. Whereas Smiley Face may have been controlling the early game. They get 2 or 3 kills on the left side of the map. Sure, they commit the majority of their relics, but they weren't able to turn it into anything greater. Even in a 5 versus 3 scenario around the Gold Fury with the vision advantage, Smiley Face wasn't willing to commit towards trying to take away that objective. But every time Belt Slap gets even a minuscule lead, they're immediately pushing it in, trying to do anything on the map. Take out a tier 1 tower, tier 2 tower, Pyromancer, Fire Giant, Gold Fury, it doesn't matter. Whatever objective they're close to, they're going to immediately try and move in towards it, and that's why we're starting to see this game get blown wide open. Now, 7,000 gold in the leader, Belt Slap, and it's not going to get better before it gets worse, because Ao Kuang might just be the hardest scaling god in this game.
And, you know, we like to talk about how Johnny can, you know, sometimes be the reason the team does really well. Obviously, you can see the damage that Arkle puts out. You can see a lot of the essence of this team. But when he's 5-0-0, all 5 of the kills are on his back, you do see why he's the one that we end up talking about so much. Is because he's the one creating all of these opportunities for the rest of the team. And now, with this Fire Giant, they're able to not only get that Fury, but they're moving into a tier 2 here in mid. Every other tower is gone. So now it turns into Smiley Face's Phoenix defense. And how exactly does that look? I mean, do the stuns, do the mages do enough for Smiley Face to hold back Belt Slap?
Oh, their defense is incredibly strong. It might not be enough to hold them back just because of the lead that we're looking at. 10,000 gold, Fire Giant, which I like to equate to 10,000 gold as well. So an effective 20,000 gold lead. But as far as the individual pieces, Sanctified Field, no play zone, drops it, get out of my Phoenix. Eye Silence uses his ultimate. That's a fantastic team fight disengage tool. Brats can keep the minion wave out very easily. If anyone falls low, you know Saragazek's going to jump in, throw up on them, and start throwing out some cone auto attacks. And Lamogao, with his ultimate, will be a really good way to burn some beads.
Well, like always, it's up to Trix Tank to start things off, and he does it well. Final Judgment connects onto Mogao there, and the snipes are coming through just off the mark on the last one, but Trix Tank cleans up E-Chrome and makes sure to get rid of that. And Johnny, well, he didn't want to be a part of the fight. He gets the Phoenix instead. You trade Trix for 2. So far, they're screaming Worth. Arkyle, though, in a little bit of trouble. Arkle ends up going down there as Brat stuns him out, locks him down, forces the beads. And that Aegis just a little bit off cooldowns. And how you trade your dual lane out for this? But you still get 2 Phoenixes, and actually, the Oni wave that you have over in right, they might be able to put some pressure onto the right lane Phoenix as well.
They shouldn't really be willing to move up here. Smiley Face did use a lot of their ultimates, but even then, 3 versus 5, not really
That's
worth
dangerous.
the risk, especially considering Fire Giant. You don't want to lose out on that since it's going to be about another 2 minutes until that respawns. It was interesting play from Smiley Face. They used all of their tools almost at the exact same time. Normally on a siege defense, you want to stagger them out. On the first wave of defense, use the Sanctified Field, force them to back up, maybe get a little bit of poke. Next wave of defense, send Lamogao in, drop his ultimate. But instead, because they used all their tools at once, Belt Slap was immediately able to just disengage and then move back in and not have to worry about anything. Meanwhile, Johnny just kind of got to push down mid for free.
I'm a little scared of Johnny now. You know, he, like you said, got to push down mid for free. He backs and buys a full-on hastened ring now. So he's going to be able to stick to anybody that he wants coming through. So many sentry wards, so much coverage. This feels like Belt Slap not necessarily surrendering the next minute and a half, but realistically they're looking at this next Fire Giant as the big play, the one that's more than likely going to seal the deal for them. And I mean, you had highlighted it earlier, but now approaching 12K in terms of gold differential between the two teams. This is what we expect from a team that has been so just decorated this year in terms of Challenger Circuit play. And the way they've been playing, and of course the names on it, as you had highlighted earlier, feel like a Pro League team. So I can ask, you know, we're 26 minutes in. It's not the end of the game, but so far, the Ao Kuang was the question mark coming into this. Has it got the seal of approval now, the 5-0-0?
Ao Kuang looks good, but Johnny kind of just looks good in general. I'm not sure. I want to see it in that SPL caliber of play. I'm not willing to make a blanket statement on the viability of this pick until I see it played against the absolute best. No shame on Smiley Face. They're a completely strong team, but when even Belt Slap as a whole, they've only, dropped 2 maps in their entire lifetime as a team?
That's definitely not something you want to be up against as of right now. The damage is going to be good from Zeros, but Julio pushed out of the fight pretty early on. Snipes going to connect the last shot, but not the middle shot there for Arkle, so he gets a little bit of pressure. And just before that, I think Johnny showed off what he can do. Stuck to Sarah Gazek and forced the leap out. Got about half his health bar before he was able to disengage from that one. I think that's kind of the play right now. Johnny, go do whatever you want. The rest of us will continue playing Smite. You can just go and look for Arena at this point if you really want to. He's going for the zone as the team wants to once again look for this Fire Giant. Whether they get that or a couple of kills, they're going to be happy, and they'll be able to try and end the game off of it, but it's going to be into the background, looking for some damage, and the crits returning onto Saraga are going to be great. The execute comes through, Johnny's up in the sky, and now he is 6 out of 7, but he drops right back in onto E-Chrome, and as you can imagine, he hits the delete button on him. Now, that's a double kill for your jungler, who's looking to chase him down. Final Judgment a little off the mark, but it doesn't matter. The Phoenix is where the rest of the eyes are going to be. Zero still wants a little bit of blood. And this just feels pretty much par for the course for Belt Slap. Maybe not enough to end the game just yet, but with 3 Phoenixes down, Fire Minions in mid, Fire Minions in left, this should be a free Fire Giant.
It should be. I like how Belt Slap start off that engagement as well. They put pressure onto that right Phoenix, even knowing that they really didn't have the potential to take it away. But because they were there, it forces Smiley Face to group up as 5 and deal with that defense. Meanwhile, the mid wave, the Firemans in mid and left start to push up towards the enemy's base. So it forces Terra to back up, not engage herself into that last engagement around the Fire Giant, and she has to keep the base secure, which means that Belt Slap artificially manufactured a 5 versus 4 scenario. And with a lead, with an Ao Kuang in the late game, with a numbers advantage, of course you're going to win that engagement, and now they got a Fire Giant on the tail end of it. So far, Smiley Face, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to defend against this. Someone's got to stop Johnny. Someone's just got to hit him a little bit, but so far, Johnny's just been able to maneuver throughout these team fights, almost like a ninja, taking out one person at a time, going up into the air, choosing another guy who's been split off, taking him out, then re-engaging with his team. There hasn't been a concentrated effort from Smiley Face to target priority targets on the side of Belt Slap.
Well, and it's so difficult. You know, normally I like to talk about diversification of your targets, right? It seems like right now, hey, you kill Johnny, maybe you get rid of the whole team, but then you look at the player damage, you realize that, well, Arkle's just 2k behind him, and that can change in the matter of a team fight. 3k behind him is going to be Zeros, which, again, can change in one team fight if Johnny just doesn't happen to be there. So I don't even know that killing Johnny stops your problems, and maybe just stops the most imminent one, which, honestly, is still going to be a big win for you. Because right now they're looking to do the same 4-1 split they did earlier. 4 over here in left lane. Johnny pushing down mid. And, well, we've seen the same song and dance for jungler versus jungler, how that goes.
Yeah, but now they've got Cerberus hovering over there, which means it's going to be a 4 versus 3 in left.
And now it's going to be very solid. Julio goes in. Saraga gets taken down by Johnny over there in mid. Now they can get aggressive, saying Defied Fields have been rolled out, but it's only going to do so much to slow down Belt Slap. They're already too aggressive, and E-Chrome goes down. Now they're looking to chase even into the fountain. 2 Phoenixes are down. Fire Minions are in the Titan room. And, well, when they decide to stop getting kills, this looks like Belt Slap taking the victory, no problem. But they're still farming up their damage, Mifflin. They finally turn their eyes to the Titan. They take game number 1 in kind of an unsurprising manner compared to what we've seen out of them in the past. But, I mean, picking up some quote-unquote unorthodox picks, they've seemed to have adapted to this mid-season patch pretty well.
They really have, and they didn't do it like any other team. Instead of targeting those magical hunters, instead we saw Ao Kuang got the focus there. Rom still getting prioritized very highly by Belt Slap. I like what we're seeing a lot, but even then, I think that Belt Slap, if they clean up the early game just a little bit, Smiley Face really didn't get any kills post 15 minutes. Belt Slap, clean that up, you might just go undying, but I'm not going to complain too much. When the jungler is 8-0, when every single team fight post 20 minutes goes your way handedly, you control every single objective, I mean, no notes, Belt Slap, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, the only thing that maybe slowed them down early on was literally just having an Ao Kuang, right? He's not necessarily known for his level 1 kill potential, but did work out well for them. So many members of Smiley Face, under 10k damage. You get 15k there from Echrome, 16 from Brats, but 3 up in the 20,000s on the side of Belt Slap. It's kind of hard not to then talk about Johnny, considering he had a majority of the kills, was probably one of the most impactful. It feels like everything we've said about Belt Slap in the past, where everyone plays really well, and Johnny just gets to be the star because he's the one coming out on top with the last hits.
You know, the last hits, the damage, the kill participation, the gold. We'll give it all to him because Johnny kind of did it all. Yeah, he's just kind of popping off there. But that's what Belt Slap has been playing around since day one, which again is so surprising because Johnny isn't one of these veteran players. He's not been around the scene nearly as long as the rest of this squad on Belt Slap. And that just shows to me that they have recognized that this kid has a ton of talent. He's an up-and-comer, and they're willing to play around him because it's the right thing to do.
And little plays like that, I didn't even notice it in the moment, but, you know, dropping Sanctified Fields and then he immediately hits beads just so he can continue to beat you down. I mean, that's threatening at that point. Like, he doesn't care if he gets stunned or silenced afterward. He knows that his kill potential is so high that he can just throw his beads into the wind and dash you down, and without a dash even, to make sure that he can stick to you. So I think the Ao Kuang, again, worked here. We'll have to see whether or not it escalates upward or if it, you know, trickles downward in Europe. But Belt Slap take that one in a commanding fashion, at least for game number 1. Smiley Face in the past have taken one game off of Belt Slap, but that was the, I think, very first game they played against each other. And since then, now it has been 5 maps in a row that they have lost to this team. I don't know if now's when it changes, but Mifflin, if you had to change your ban strategy or your pick strategy here, what do you start looking at first?
It's so hard, right? Ao Kuang is this kind of specialized pick, so maybe ban it. All right, yeah, smiley face. I mean, can't argue with the results. Ban out the Ao Kuang. Make sure Johnny has to fall back to something else. But that's going to open you up to all these other meta picks that we started to see. Are you still going to be able to dedicate that ban to the Morrigan to target out zeros? Are you still going to be able to make sure that you get Freya yourself? When you're doing these kind of unorthodox target bans, it just opens up the meta, and Belt Slap is certainly a team that is capable of playing the good characters.
Now you're, you know, maybe dodging out a little bit. Like you said, Morrigan was banned out, now the Ao Kuang joining. I think it was Persephone Cthulhu for the other two from Smiley Face last time around, but just based on what I see down at the bottom of the screen. So, gonna leave something open. Luckily, Smiley Face being first pick doesn't mean they can scoop up one of those 2 picks. So they go with the Cthulhu here last. And this is something, we've gotten to see a whole lot of him or a whole not of him, considering he was very prominent in the Pro League last week. And I think since then, he's just been banned out. We don't get to see him too often.
I mean, the pros just needed 1 week to get that proof of evidence that, wow, this guy's kind of strong. You mean he can heal the entire team? Yeah, knock us up 5 times in a row, deal immense damage. He's unkillable because of the damage mitigation. And even when he's not in a transform form, if you play him in the early game, he's an absolute bully. That dash does insane damage. He's got a fear on him. He's got a root. I mean, he's just such a versatile god, and he's one of the best guardians of the game for controlling space.
Well, you mentioned someone was going to get through, and I think it's, you know, well, a Smiley Face for Smiley Face. They get the Freya, who we have seen dominating so much. Olarun's still available. Belt Slap want they can go for it, although they kind of ignored it pretty hard during the first 3 picks. Last game ended up being fine, letting Smiley Face take that one away. And Olarun, this is actually an interesting dynamic because we don't get to talk about it often. He's been banned out a lot, but he's one of the few that can truly flex in the mid and still be comfortable over there. How would you feel if you saw Smiley Face pick up Freya and Olarun? Is that something you can actually do?
You know what? It makes you so absolutely weak in the early game. You won't have pressure in any single lane. You're going to have to wait until level 12, level 13 to hit those power spikes. Sure, Freya might be able to fight in, but Olarun especially is so item reliant, and it's going to make it a lot harder for you to clear out objectives as well. I think it could work, and I say could work because I know at some point someone in the SPL or the SEC is going to do it and pop off. Someone will send me a clip of me saying that it wouldn't work right now, and I'll look like an idiot. So let me hedge my bets a little bit. It's still very strong. You're essentially picking the 2 best magical hunters insofar as team fights. Freya has the most damage, and Olarun has one of the best team fight ultimates in the game to completely change the pace. So it could work out depending on how the pace of the match plays out. If you're playing this more aggressive style in the late game and they do allow you to farm up in the early, it could be incredibly potent. but I think the weakness of it is how exposed you are in the early game. If you get ganked in mid, Olorun's so easy to shut down pre-5, and he's going to have to deal with a 3v3 as well. Freya in the duo lane, also pretty easy to shut down. It's going to take a couple kills, but she only really has Valkyrie's Discretion and Banish to keep herself alive. Sure, she's got the relics as well, but even then, you're still going to hit your power spikes much, much later than a standard team comp.
Well, it does look like they're going to save you from having to go too in-depth, and at least for the rest of the game. Freya, Bakasura, Khepri so far picked up for Smiley Face, where it's Sobek that we saw work really well. Jingwei now instead of the Rom, and Kali now for Johnny, presumably in the jungle there, something that has been solid. The Yanis, and now alongside the Merlin. Yanis is maybe the one that kind of throws me for a loop. Not a lot of people are running him at that high level right now. I mean, we've seen Venenu pick it up and play it one way. Whirlwind obviously is the one that I think is the go-to talking point for him. Is it worth really banning out something that honestly doesn't feel that prominent?
I think Yanis especially is a god that really flourishes in the lower levels of play because it is a god that requires a ton of coordination to shut down. When you have that level of mobility, it's going to take at least 3 people focusing you to force it out to set someone up to actually find that kill. And at these levels of play where the teams are a little bit less coordinated, they're a little bit more mistake prone, Yanis is a god that can just kind of pop off as a solo agent. He can just move in on his own, find damage in the backline, teleport out, re-engage, throw out ultimates to maneuver the map. So I think banning out Yanis here does make a little bit of sense if you're worried about how well he's going to just survive in the late game team fight.
Well, I think I'm starting to quake a little bit if I'm Smiley Face here. You get Sobek, Jingwei, Kali, Tyr, like at least 3 of those 4 so far feel like almost signature picks for the players of Belt Slap. I think Jingwei you could definitely argue in favor of. And now you get the Scylla and the Guan Yu of all things. Guan Yu maybe wasn't where my mind was going onto the solo lane. How do you think he fares against Tyr?
He's got a decent matchup. Tyr can't Fearless you while you're doing the Taolu Assault. You can dash through the Fearless as well. You have a heal to sustain up. You're not going to have nearly as much sustain as Tyr will. Power Cleave is such a strong tool there. But as far as team fights go, he's going to be able to rotate out a little bit earlier on. Having a stun on your ultimate is one of the best things you could have. You have a gap close, and then you can immediately set up for your team. Paired with that Scylla, I'm a Monster is going to be very easy to land. I like Smiley Face's draft a lot. Bakasura should be able to get you through the early game as long as he farms up a little bit and then immediately starts to look for ganks around that level 10 point. Freya is going to be your late game hyper carry, and Khepri, I mean, Scarab's Blessing, that's all I need to say. You're going to keep someone alive.
I mean, especially when it's someone as useful as, let's say, a Bakasura or a Freya, that more than likely is going to be a target number 1 here for Belt Slap. Second Life for them, honestly, could quite literally turn a fight around in your favor, especially with the builds that we've been seeing lately. The lifesteal that Freya brings could heal up. No problem there. They're looking for maybe some early game damage, similar to how they did last time, Silenced and E-Chrome, as it's kind of a ring around the rosy here with the duo lane, as they're just looking for any and all aggression opportunities. Zeros, though, did go right back to that Thoth. So it's going to be very solid in the mid lane. We've already seen what it can do. And again, with the way that they've drafted here, Belt Slap, even though they're up against a very solid team that I think is going to give them a lot of trouble, they're playing a lot of comfort picks. This Kali specifically, Johnny, again, maybe it's not known for this early game power and early game kill potential, but Johnny has showed us what he can do on this countless times this year, and I think that's something to be worried about.
I mean, comfort pick, and he just dropped like an 8-0 bomb with the top damage, gold, and kill participation, everything in last game. I think you should absolutely be worried about what Johnny's going to be able to do, but his power spikes are going to be a little bit harder to hit. It's not often that I get to say that another late-game hypercarry or an Ao Kuang outscales someone in the early game, but Kali is a god that is completely item-dependent. She needs to get that kin size online. She needs to get likely an Atalanta's bow, maybe some katanas. It's going to be a long time before Johnny can get involved in these team fights.
Yeah, already starting with that one katana. Typically, we've seen a lot of junglers going Golden Blade. It's just helpful, useful, does a whole lot for you when you're playing over there. But it's the duo lane that's just way more aggressive than they were last time around. Arkle, a little under half health here. Silenced, has been taking the poke for his team. But Khepri, level 2, level 3, when he gets everything online, that's when he starts to be able to abduct you, pin you down. There's a lot of lockdown here. Freya's early game, I mean, we were talking about how she's not necessarily item dependent, but, you get that Ring of Hecate and all of a sudden it turns around. She still hits really hard here at level 2. It's just much slower, and it's not going to 100 to 0 you in 2 seconds.
It won't. It is certainly strong, though. I mean, we even saw it there. Arkle just ate the full channel of Pulse, lost about 60% of his health bar, and then dashed into the Pulse to give him a couple more auto attacks. It was a strange decision, but Freya's real strength in the early game and where kill potential is in the pre-level 5 meta is that she's got a slow on our auto attack. If you're caught out outside of your wave, you don't have anything to hide behind, you're likely going to tank up just about every single auto that Echrome decides to throw out, which is exactly what happened to Arkle. But even then, Arkle should be able to outscale and damage in the 1v1, just because Jingwei gets that additional power from using the dash. She's got a knock-up to continue hitting you while you're CC'd. Once we see both supports rotate out, I imagine it's going to be a very aggressive lane for both, since both Freya and Jingwei have decent kill potential into each other.
Well, Johnny poked his head in for a second, tried to see how the duo lane was going, and decided Oracle Harpies instead was going to be the route, and it's just because look how aggressive his team is. You can't really do much when they're that close to their tower range, especially as a level 3 Kali. So not surprising to see him just come back to the mid lane, steal some farm, do what he can, but now the question is on the aggression from Belt Slap, and because the jungler, this Bakasura, rotates in, Saraga is going to be able to help confirm the purple buff. And again, it's just enough presence to ward off any fights, even though you can feel Belt Slap wanting to use that aggression and utilize it in the best way possible. Even now, Johnny looking to get aggressive over here with the solo lane, even if it is just to try and steal a blue buff.
But it is dangerous. Zek is just around the corner, and Johnny's near Lium.
And that's going to be a 2-man Fearless for Julio. He's going to be able to cause a little bit of distraction. Picks up a blue buff for himself, but Saraga is going to go ahead and jump on in here. Johnny, like he said, has no mana to really fight. And, well, because of that, he's just going to be able to walk on out of this one. I think the same can be said for this Bakasura. Not enough fight ready for them. Neither of them level 5 either. I think a Regurgitate there continues a fight. But since it doesn't exist, you're just going to have to fall back and walk away happy because you stole a blue buff if you're Belt Slap.
I love the discipline from Johnny there. Immediately when he saw that Saraga Zek turned around the corner, he started to position himself to jump over the blue buff wall, but instead decided, well, if I jump out, I won't be able to help Julio, so I'm going to stick around, and it saves his mana, walks out with his teammate, and you know, if the engagement starts from Lamogao, from Saraga Zek, he could have used the stun and used that to help his teammate disengage, or if they saw that Smiley Face was going to move in towards their blue buff, he maintains his mana so they can fight and be able to defend it there. I mean, that's just next level discipline. I love seeing that type of play.
That showcases how, I want to say, deep in it right now Johnny is in terms of his focus, right? Being able to come through. Obviously, I don't think you get 8 kills casually, so it does make a lot of sense. But now Echrome, once again, forced to use his beads as the result of a pluck here. Trixtank being able to land these, I think, a little more consistently so far this game. It feels like that's been happening on cooldown the 2 times he's been able to. Echrome's had to use them. And so it's just that one moment. He makes one mistake, one step too far. Trixtank is going to, well, toss him straight to Arkle, who I will assume will melt him afterward. But it does come down to that power spike we were, I mean, again, talking about last game. Very similar concept here. Having a hunter come through up against a mage carry means you have a little bit of focus. You're going to go for the purple buff of all things. It just feels like Belt Slap want anything and everything to fight.
And that might cost them Trixtank's life as Brock's able to find the rotation in. I'm a monster. Might be a little bit of overkill, but at least it does net you first blood. But even then, the lead that Belt Slap has established in the early game, just from farming the map a little bit more efficiently, first blood bounty didn't even close it up completely. Belt Slap's about 20 gold up still.
I mean, being able to pick that up is going to be solid for the mid laner, really. Yeah, like you said, having even a smidge of a gold lead afterward, still going to feel nice, I guess, for Belt Slap as they finally take over that 18k mark for the whole team. But, I mean, Scylla getting that kill early on, changing the farm slightly ahead of the Thoth. Both of them are late game powerhouses. Both of them have insane confirm and insane late game damage, maybe a little harder to hit there for Zeros than it will be for Bratz. Do you think that first blood is going to end up biting them back as Belt Slap, that the Scylla is maybe going to get a little too out of control, or is it something that they can just kind of shrug off for now?
It depends on how the next couple minutes go, but as it stands, we're looking at maybe a half-level lead in favor of Bratz. Sure, he's probably about 300 gold up onto Zeros, but even then, the power spikes aren't that big of a deal, and Zeros has a really decent matchup into the Scylla. I mean, we saw it right there. Hieroglyphic Assault from halfway across the lane is going to take out 20% of Scylla's health. She can't really respond by doing anything besides crushing the wave.
Well, that's going to be Regurgitate over here in the solo lane. A good Fearless from Julio, but maybe not good enough. Saraga's just going to then get out of it and turn around and smack you down for the kill there onto the jungler. And I think showcasing one of the strengths that this Bakasura was maybe lacking a little bit earlier on last game. We were talking about how he likes to farm early, and Serica was looking for all of these ganks, never really found anything that flourished. Now, part of the 2 kills that Smileyface has, it's definitely helping him out in the jungle.
But this is the exact same pace that we were looking at last match. Smileyface did pull a lead in the early game. They were up a couple kills, but they haven't been able to do anything with it. Sure, you killed the Soul Laner. What are you going to do after that? Nothing. Blue buff hasn't respawned yet, so you don't even get an invade. Sure, you found a kill over towards dual lane on the support. What are you going to do after that? Well, nothing. Oracles were already dead. You weren't able to move into the Gold Fury. Smileyface are finding these small picks, but they're not finding picks often enough to establish a lead, and they're not finding priority enough picks to do anything really impactful off of it.
Yeah, killing Julio there just bought them a little bit of time to farm solo and maybe get a couple of hits off of that tower. Not much in terms of the grand scheme of the game. So we'll have to see how they continue this. Specifically, I think Johnny and his retaliation finishes off his boots here. Is keeping up pretty well in terms of where Serica is in the level. The experience difference may be going to exist there, but like you said, the gold not getting too out of hand. And Freya's almost at that big power spike that comes with the Ring of Hecate. Finish it off her boots. So one more back is all she'll need, and then I expect that we're going to see Echrome maybe start doing what we just saw a little bit more often. Push out Arkle, except maybe next time it'll be finding a kill as opposed to just knocking him under tower.
Yeah, it's already not easy for Arkle. We already saw that was 2 auto attacks of damage from Echrome. The first one just Pulse, the second one Pulse and Irradiate. Arkle lost 30% of his health bar. Look, I mean, Echrome's behind, but he's continually looking for these fights, and he's just going to keep doing so.
And now he's in a little bit of danger. Arkle uses his ult, but now he's and in a dangerous position. Bakasura jumps right into the Gold Fairy, takes a lot of damage, and is going to into the Gold Fairy to get that Khepri proc so he can come through. The pluck going to be onto Silenced and not Serica. Now it looks like the Bakasura can run away here. Silenced, he's tanky, and it looks like it's just enough to keep him alive through all this. Has to use a lot of relics here in order to stay alive on the side of Smileyface.
Nice jump.
Far still actually working out well for them. Now they could turn it around. Echrome is looking to rotate it in. Johnny, though, using his beads, is going to be able to jump on out of there. The crush comes through, looking for the target, maybe getting the heal here on the Silence if he goes for it. Jumps on in, has no mana left, is 1 hit from dead. But I don't know if they're fast enough to try and catch up. Mogau's going to use his horse. There's going to be the Sentinel. It's going to be the crush, just the tail end of it, Mifflin. And they get rid of Johnny. It looked like he was going to be able to run away, but he's just a little too slow.
But he does force out a lot of utility there. Guan Yu had to use his ultimate because he was worried that Johnny was going to escape. I mean, Johnny played that fight incredibly well. Jump stomp a monster, jumps into the tower to get the HP reset. That wasn't even his target. That was just the additional bonus of finding a kill with your jump onto the Khepri. Johnny's playing incredibly well, and he hasn't even hit his power spikes yet. He's only got Golden Blade and Ninja Tabi. Very low power, very low attack speed. He's not really doing that much damage, and he's already able to make plays like that. I'm sure Smileyface have a little bit of a wake-up call there that, oh wait, we haven't really had to deal with the main threat from Belt Swap, which is the jungler.
Well, you know he's playing well, but he's not 100% Jungle Shrine efficient playing well right now from Johnny. He's just efficient in every other mechanic so far that he's had to execute on. So it's looking pretty good for them. But I think it showcases, yeah, like you said, where Smileyface are going to have to turn some of that focus for them. It's going to be Arkle that now is pressured out, uses the ult, more or less just to save a purple buff there is the Regurgitate used as well from Bakasura. So they're just kind of, it feels almost like they're throwing things out for the sake of it here on Smileyface to see what they can stick. As of right now, it hasn't been enough to convert into many kills.
I would have liked to see Zek try and chase down that kill a little bit further. Sure, Tricksink was around, but there really wasn't much kill potential. Zek was pretty safe. He was completely full mana. His health was fine. And he's got way more movement speed than Arkle does at this point. Had he decided to chase down that kill, he might have picked off the Hunter and then been able to open up a gold free for his team. But instead, he kind of takes the safe play of defending his purple.
Well, Silence is going to get caught out here. Forced to ult himself, is going to get the res, but everyone's just waiting for him to land back, so that's going to be 2 kills in a row, technically, onto Silence, although it's only going to count for 1. They managed to burn down Zeros on the other side. Echrome plucked back into the waiting arms of Beltslap, and they're going to be able to find that, but a huge crush coming out from Bronson, a big double kill from the ult as well, to be able to turn this one around at 2 for 3 now in favor of Smileyface. Johnny's low, and now he's trying to fight the Bakasura. Looks like that jump is going to be enough to get him out of here, but Bratz with a huge rotation just changes the pace of that fight instantly.
Yeah, we want to talk about star players. For Smiley Face, it's almost always been Bratz. I mean, he's able to find these huge, impactful plays, but even then, it wasn't a clean enough fight for Smiley Face to push it into an objective, and they're still not even looking at that large of a lead. They don't find the priority target inside of Johnny, so he's allowed to continue farming. So far, though, Smiley Face, off the back of 6 picks, has started to establish some small XP leads in each role. 1 level in solo, a couple levels in jungle, maybe a level and a half. Mid lanes have reached a point of parity. Trix Tank is actually ahead himself, but Smiley Face are winning out on the majority of these engagements. They just haven't been able to turn it into anything bigger.
And that's the question now, is whether or not they're going to be able to take that and turn it into something, or if they're stuck here once again. You know, now 1,000 gold in the lead. And it doesn't mean too much. I mean, 1,000 gold we've seen dissipate so incredibly fast, but I think the experience maybe being a little more important. 1,200 there. It's just those small levels, right? The one in mid, the one in the jungle that could end up getting turned into something else. 4-0-0 for the Scylla. Obviously painting himself as a huge target. I think that's something that Johnny, you know, as you keep highlighting, hasn't hit his power spike. That's probably where he's going to start looking once he has that easy target and easy ability to jump back there and melt people down. So I'm almost scared if I'm Bratz. I've been having a great game. I'm looking great on Scylla. Looks like he's going to go into a Doom Orb as well, so a huge power spike. And all you know is that pretty soon someone's going to be looking to kill you pretty often.
You do have to be concerned about it. And with the Kali's passive, if she does target out this Scylla, she's not only going to get this huge bounty for a 4-0, but she's actually going to get her target bounty as well. She's going to get so much from a power spike here. But Smiley Face don't have to be too concerned. Taking a second look at the entirety of their draft, they scale incredibly well into that 5-on-5 engagement team fight phase in the late game. I mean, they might just be willing to play it slow now, be happy with the small wins that they're taking, and hope that Johnny doesn't pop off too hard in the late, and they should be able to just win out on some of these engagements. E-Chrome is going to scale incredibly well. He's going to have the backing of Eye Silence to keep him alive for the majority of the time, and even then, you're going to have to work through Freya's Beads, Aegis, Valkyrie's Discretion, then Scarab's Blessing. It's going to be very hard for Belt Slap to shut down this Freya.
Especially now that she's starting to feel a little more online. 0-1-4, and you know, we've been looking at it, and I think yesterday we got to see it more in the Pro League than anything, where some teams are starting to handle Freya a little bit better, but it does feel like you almost have to commit one member to just Freya duty. So it's a 4v4 otherwise, and that can change the pace of the game so much. And honestly, that's assuming that that one person is going to be able to do enough to deal with that Freya. And so, again, I think I said it last game, but I'll say it again, diversification of targets. Hey, who's going to hit harder, the Scylla, the Freya? I think the answer is just yes in that case. They're both going to hit insanely hard, and you have to be careful with it. But now they're just laying in wait. Gold Fury's still probably the one that teams are looking at as the next available option. And it doesn't feel like either team has a leg up over the other in terms of securing it or sneaking it away.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Secure goes, both teams have huge damage ultimates. Zeros on this Thoth, Bratz on Scylla, both have fantastic confirm tools. But I would say that Smiley Face are a little bit more limited just by range. If they start up the Gold Fury, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if Belt Slap started up themselves, we're going to have to see Bratz move pretty far forward to find I'm a Monster. That said, if Smiley Face started up, Zero's going to be sitting in Timbuktu and shoot out that ultimate and maybe even steal it away.
So the thing that's catching my eye right now is something that we haven't gotten to see so far in the second half of the year. Granted, there hasn't been a whole lot of play to take this from, but it's the movement speed build that we're seeing out of Julio right now. That was very, very popular for the first half and the first phase of the SPL. It was very popular for the first 2 phases here of the Challenger Circuit, but so far this year, or at least in phase 2, I should say, we haven't seen too much of it in the SPL, and now he's gone back to it. How do you feel this fares versus what we've seen the kind of other itemization for solo laners be?
You're going to be sacrificing a lot of damage. You're going to be sacrificing a lot of movements, or not movement speed, rather. You're going to be sacrificing defense. But what you are making up for is the ability to maneuver around these fights incredibly well. And when you have certain targets that you know that it's going to be your job to handle in the late game, this might still be an incredibly viable build. If Julio's entire idea, or what he wants to do in these team fights, is make sure he's able to get himself to E-Chrome and find a Fearless to just create a couple seconds of time for the rest of his team, to maybe do some work on the rest of Smiley Face, this could be a very viable strategy. That said, it's going to be a double-edged sword. He gets whooped at any point, he's going to lose 40-50% of his health bar before he even touches the ground. It's going to be very hard for Julio to survive in these team fights for any extended period of time.
Speaking of 40-50% of their health bar disappearing, Zeros went from 100 to, well, about 33 there very fast. The aggression's still coming through. Final Judgment rips through but doesn't connect with anybody. Silenced, gonna get Fearless back along with Mogao towards that tier 1, but it's the fight over here in the jungle that takes interest. Saraga taken down by Johnny, so that's a good kill for the Kali, and now E-Chrome's left alone. Brat's trying to make a rotation in, keep him alive and keep him safe, but just used a lot of his cooldowns, looking for the kill onto Arkle, and decided to be able to find it as well. E-Chrome uses the whoop for the disengage, and the I'm a Monster not going to be able to find the damage it needs to on the Johnny. Looking for the turnaround, but that's gonna be Johnny not only getting the kill, but the heal and the reset as well for his passive. Looking to get even more aggressive. Again, Crush only doing so much to try and save the day as Johnny's looking to chase down one man and one man only. It's Bratz who is the target right now. You just need a little bit of damage, but that Crush eats out so much of his health bar. Jukes the stun that comes out. Julio picks up the kill onto the Scylla. That's going to be a 3-for-1. You only lose Arkle in that trade, and Beltslap seemed pretty happy with that.
Yeah, let that be a lesson to Smiley Face. You might be able to win an engagement, but you can't win it around Johnny. He's going to drag himself into every single fight. He uses the ultimate early on. Doesn't matter to him. Continue looking for aggression. He's able to drag away a ton of the damage. Bratz tries to focus him out with the Crush. So what? He's still got the rest of his team around him. Beltslap played that fight incredibly well, and from behind, they were able to continually force these 3-on-1 engagements, 2-on-1 engagements. They artificially split up the fight and just completely controlled the pace, and now what was a small lead for Smiley Face in the early has exploded into maybe the largest lead we've seen all game in 2,000 in favor of Beltslap. Still very inconsequential, but you know Beltslap is the type of team who's immediately going to, move to Gold Fury, move to Pyromancer, force another fight, because when they get a lead, they continue growing it. They like to build upon what they've already established.
And they just showcased that they have more than enough potential to win a fight. Again, there's always that question of I'm a monster, it's secure potential, so starting up something like a Gold Fury might be a little dangerous. But looking for more kills, well, that's right in Trixtank's playbook. In fact, I think it might be the only page of his playbook, which is you open it up and it just says, be aggressive. And giant, red, not pretty menacing letters, honestly, and now they're going to be able to use that aggression to, well, pick up that Gold Fury, as you had highlighted. They do it pretty easily this time around. Bratz nowhere to be seen. It does take the final judgment away from Zeros, but, I mean, clean is clean, and now they extend their lead even further.
I mean, losing out on a team fight, objective, clear, ultimate in a European team, not a big deal. If they don't want to fight, Europeans aren't going to fight. This isn't North America. They're not playing against Ghost. I'm sure both teams are going to be happy to catch a breather for a little bit, go back to farming. But Beltslap, it's almost like clockwork. Immediately, they're going to move into the next objective. I imagine once Zeros gets his ultimate back up, or maybe even before that, they'll look for the Pyromancer. And if Smiley Face is going to give up another one for free, this lead is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And Beltslap might just hit their power spikes before E-Chrome, Silence, and Bratz can deal with it. Johnny's already level 18. He's got the kin size Golden Blade. It looks like he's working into another Toxic Blade. He's going to be swinging hard.
Well, Mogao seemed to be in a little bit of trouble there, but unfortunately for Beltslap, he has the tower, healing, and is just kind of outright tanky enough that it's not going to be a big threat. Still lost the blue buff thanks to Johnny's rotation. I think that's what Johnny's been doing very consistently. And again, earlier you had highlighted his power spikes, Hazen Katana, Chin Size, now both online here for the Kali. Whereas it's an Atalanta's picked up by Saraga on the other side, looking to help burn down this Pyromancer. But how do you feel about the Atalantas here for the Assassin?
I like it a lot. I mean, getting a partial haste when you already have a literal haste is only going to make him just a little bit more quick, but the power spike is nice. Atalanta's bow is a nice source of literal physical power, attack speed's there, get a little bit of penetration. It's just about everything you need in an auto attacker. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best hunter/auto attack assassin stat sticks in the game, but normally you would see gods like Bakasura go for something along the lines of a stone-cutting sword if they're looking for that additional source of penetration, which would also allow them to have additional movement speed. So it's interesting to see that this is the ability he's decided to go for, especially considering he already has haste. I think it might just be a bit of overkill.
I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with it, but like you said, maybe a little overkill. Maybe he just doesn't care about the passive. I mean, the stats, like you had kind of highlighted, are pretty good even without it, so you're not going to worry too much about it. Either way, it's going to be very solid. Yeah, there you get to see the attack speed, the power, and as you had highlighted, the penetration, maybe trying to help them out here. And they're going to need it because Fire Giant has been started up by Belt Slap. It's the question of how to get into the fight and, well, how you want to engage it. Mogao already half health, has his healing, so can get out of combat and try to tick everyone right back up. Him and Silence have been very high priority targets. That's going to be a good Fearless on the Silence to lock him right back into the rest of the team. That's going to be Bakasura looking to eat through anyone and everyone, but unfortunately they get the revive from Khepri already on the mark. Having to rotate in and look for something big. That's 3 ults down versus 1 on the side of Belt Slap, which means things are going to get a little rough here. Brotz, Chrome, maybe even more pressure to perform now more than ever. The pluck from Trickstank going to be good once again onto Silence, but the damage from Echrome is just immense onto Trickstank. Melts him down. I'm a Monster comes through and hurts on Arkle, but it's not going to be able to get the kill. That's going to be the full heal reset once again for Johnny. Silence gets picked up. Now the tanks are gone for Smiley Face. Brotz and Echrome have a lot of damage, but honestly, if you're Belt Slap, you're happy with it. You go in, you get the kills, you get out.
Another 2-for-1 trade in favor of Belt Slap. If Silence gets picked out ever, that's immediately a sign to me that Belt Slap is going to try and run him down. That Scarab's Blessing is really the only thing that's been stopping Belt Slap from shutting down Echrome, from shutting down Brotz. When that tool is gone, it's going to be gas pedal all the way, and we saw it there. Johnny popped his ultimate, held down W, and tried to find a kill as quickly as he could. And now Fire Giant, with this small lead, they're going to look for it while the rest of Smiley Face is going to have to walk back from base.
Echrome doesn't have his ult, so yeah, you can see that it's being done. What can you do about it? Especially right now, that whoop doesn't connect. The damage is still going to be good. It's still Freya overall, but whether or not they can do anything with this is going to be the big difference. Silence has respawned. Mogao going to be back in just a couple of seconds here, so maybe thwarts Belt Slap's attempt at a Fire Giant this time around. But showcases how dangerous these fights are going to be. If you jump in even just slightly wrong from Smiley Face, or if you don't have everybody grouped up, it's going to be the question of whether you can rotate fast enough. Johnny has the wherewithal to focus his targets down every single time, and that reset has been hurting them more than helping them.
It has. Maybe some anti-heal could have been the answer to it, but it seems like they're not too worried about that reset because there's no real traditional healing on the side of Belt Slap. So Smiley Face instead are going to like to go towards just their own items, not really looking at the Toxic Blade, no Onks picked up, no Brawler's Beat Stick, I mean, no Divine Ruin either. It's going to be very hard for them to deal with the sustain coming from Johnny. Their only real goal is to make sure he doesn't get his target reset, but when he's playing like this, good luck stopping him. We're rapidly approaching the 25-minute mark, which in Europe means that the game is really about to start up, which means objectives are going to get started up as well. Primal Fury taken away means that maybe Fire Giant falls soon.
Yeah, it's going to help them out on the side of Belt Slap and trying to take that one down. That's a good whoop once again from Echrome. The damage, honestly, kind of getting scoffed at here by Trickstank. Finally, they're eating through. Brotz over the wall with the I'm a Monster is going to be able to find that one, and they get rid of Arkle as well. 2 for 0 as this I'm a Monster slams down into Johnny and looks to take his health bar as well. This Kali is about to lose her immunity, and Johnny is forced to run away, but it's one hit away. Saraga trying to chase him down, uses the beads to make sure there's no slows, the blink to close the gap. You lose Brotz, you lose Silence, but you've gotten 3 so far. Question is if you can find more, and Julio seems to be the one on the chopping block. They're looking to burn through him. Echrome goes for a whooped onto Zeros. He's stuck over here in the jungle. Now the collapse onto the mid laner is going to cause some trouble for him. The tier 2 going to be able to thwart some of that aggression, but the jungle isn't as safe. Now looking to try and turn this into some objectives. It seems a little back and forth. Who do you say would actually come out on top? I mean, 2 for 3 still seems to favor Smiley Face.
I think Smiley Face definitely got the better end of it, but Belt Slap did a good job of just damage control. It seemed like Smiley Face was going to win the fight immediately, but Julio, this is a dangerous engage 1 versus 3.
He's taking a lot of shots as of right now, but Zeros is right there in the background. Echrome doesn't have a whole lot of mana, and Julio doesn't seem to have a whole lot of cares in the world right now. He has nothing to worry about. Even at half health, he's willing to get aggressive, and now Arkle's back as well. One good Fearless will help lock down enough of these, and he's going to be able to pick up Echrome, at least for a little bit there. Worth trading his life for it. He doesn't even have to trade it out. You lose Zeros, but you get the kill onto Echrome. Now you're looking to continue the trade, and Arkle's going to come in big with the shots. Able to find one there, and looking to melt down Mogao. No mana left, and that's his health bar gone as well. A double kill for the Hunter from Belt Slap, being able to make a big swing back into this one And now they can turn that fight that, again, as you were just saying, felt like it was maybe a little bit of a deficit for them. The damage control made it so much more worthwhile.
Man, I learned two things in that engagement. One, Arkle doesn't miss auto attacks, and two, Julio has zero respect for the sanctity of human life. I mean, he just walks in, nearly dead, walks out, walks back in at a lower health for some reason. My man wasn't willing to leave that engagement ever, and doing that afforded them the option of having the rest of Belt Slap respawn, rotate in, get off their ability cooldowns. I mean, Julio almost single-handedly turned a terrible situation into a fantastic one just by creating time for Belt Slap to respond to Smiley Face trying to take out that tier 2 tower, and it might even swing him a fire.
Ooh, Bratz comes in maybe a little too soon. Does have the Scarab's blessing, though, so stays alive. Not able to reposition, though, to get the on the monster. Runs in a little too quickly for them. That's the ward coverage, I think, playing against them. Belt Slap going to be able to do a lot. They get the Pyro as well, which at that point is just a little bit of garnish on top of the dish to make sure things continue going well. And there's 4 towers, well, on both sides that are still available, but more importantly right now for Smiley Face that are standing that I think are about to end up going down. And Julio, once again, showcasing, as you put it, his disregard for human life, willingness to go in when he has no one around him. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that, especially now with the Fire Giant buff.
He's not even that tanky, Gore. He's not even that tanky. He shouldn't be this brave in these engagements, but Julio just doesn't care, and it seems like Smiley Face are willing to ignore him. If at any point in that last engagement, Echrome decided to turn around and use his abilities on Julio, they would have just killed him. But instead, they tried to ignore him and focus the priority targets, which the majority of the time would have worked out. But if there's a 10% HP tier who's been fearlessing you back-to-back 3 times in a row, just kill him. Just 2 auto attacks is all you need to dedicate to it. But Julio got so much value, and not only did he save his own life with CC, but he created fantastic scenarios. It's just a bit of bad target selection from Smiley Face.
Well, Smiley Face are going to attempt to quote-unquote base race this one. It's tier 1 for tier 1 there, as they're looking to push down, but now you can see the backs coming through. This tier 2 is going to crumble a lot faster on the side of Belt Slap thanks to that Fire Giant buff. And of course, with Arkle's build now pretty much fully complete, he's going to be hitting incredibly hard up against the members of Smiley Face. So you have to be very careful, I think, with your positioning here as you look to take a Phoenix defense.
You do, and the defense is going to be very tight-rope. The majority of the damage coming out on the defense for Smiley Face is going to be from Bratz. Sarega is going to have a much harder time getting in. Echrome on this fray is a deceptively strong defense god just because of how strong of a tool Banish is. If he's able to separate one in the engagement under his Phoenix, the rest of his team should be able to set up and turn it around.
Well, right now they're looking for the damage. Final Judgment once again rips through the team, but it's not going to connect on anybody. I'm a Monster goes down onto Trix Tank of all people, but it just leaves him a little lower and a little worse for wear. Echrome still trying to find the damage that he needs. Julio takes a lot of the poke, but with a nice, well, just Lawbringer. Jumps on out of there. They get the Phoenix. They get on out. 5 members still strong. Yeah, you had to use a couple of ultimates of your Belt Slap, but I still feel like that's a huge win for them.
Just a couple of ultimates for a semi-permanent objective. Yeah, I'll take that every single day of the week. And now they're going to back up, take Primal Fury, heal up, maybe even look to push down the mid Phoenix. That left side Phoenix is going to be very hard to contend with if this Fire Giant push happens again. Smiley Face might just have to supersede their position around it and allow themselves to back up and defend their base. But right now, Belt Slap still has a lot of time to work with. They might even decide to push down another Phoenix, or at least force Smiley Face to think they have to defend against it and force them to allow those Fireman waves to push down that lane and then back up the Fire Giant again, take it away for free. Belt Slap's in a really good position.
Controlling the pace of the game, winning every fight they decide to jump into as of right now, and they've cultivated themselves 13,000 gold in that process of doing so. I mean, the Fury going down there, Fire Giant buff only exists for a little over 30 seconds here around their waist, so expect to see maybe, again, a slowdown for a minute as they wait for that to respawn. And the next one's going to be Enhanced that comes through, which, again, is something that I think plays a big role into this. You had mentioned how Freya can be deceptively good on defense. I think Bratz has a lot of damage there. Unfortunately, Bakasura maybe falls off a little bit because of the defense. He can't necessarily jump to the backline as easily. But if you lose Fire Giant, it might end up causing some trouble. They only have 10 seconds to try and get this Phoenix. And it's going to be Arkle once again that's doing a lot of the damage. They're going to continue trying to go for it. They have 4 people over here, 4-1 split, with Johnny looking to push down mid. The Fire Giant buff should be wearing off right about now. And it seems like Belt Slap recognized that. They have minions, but do you think they can do this without a Fire Giant?
Look, if it were anybody but Belt Slap, I might be willing to doubt them, but it's certainly a much riskier call, but it doesn't mean it's impossible, unless Zeros gets banished, but no follow-up from Brotz means he's going to be able to back out just fine. It seems like the strategy was just put on some pressure on the right, allow the Fire Minions to push up a little bit on the left side of the map, and then back up the Fire Giant. It's going to be spawning in the next 30 seconds. Belt Slap, yep, they're out of there. Get that ward dominance. Maybe set up an ambush in the jungle. Seems like that could be the strategy here. But I don't imagine Smiley Face are going to, one, move up in just small units. They should group up if they do want to try and defend fire. Or two, they might not even want to defend fire at all.
There's a lot of deep wards for Belt Slap, and you can see why. They were just laying in wait. Again, wanting Smiley Face to take the bait. Unfortunately, not going to be able to lock down enough there. Trix Tank uses that lurking through the waters, and it's going to be out of combat for a little while. But Zeros is still just hanging around the corner, looking to try and get some poke and see if anyone goes too deep. Fire Giants respawned at this point, but they want to be able to find a kill to start things off. And Belt Slap just setting up an ambush. They're waiting around the rocks for one person to make that misstep, and it might be Mogao or Silence right now. That could be the easiest to pick off. They're going to go ahead and get aggressive onto him. Silence forced to use the res on himself, but it doesn't get procced just yet. Goes in, has a good shell. That's an I'm a Monster that doesn't quite connect. Johnny now going deep, finds one, looking to help find two, as Arkle looks to burn through Mogao's health bar. This Guan Yu can only do so much. You've already lost your jungler as well, and that's a double kill for Johnny. One more time. Brotz, E-Chrome, we've been talking about the damage they can do and why they are so prominent, but can they deflect 5 members of Belt Slap? Right side Phoenix is down, left side Phoenix about to come back up, and it is up to these 2 members to try and hold on to this as best they can. Brotz gets plucked into nothing and now immediately eviscerated. E-Chrome up into the skies, trying to fight as long as he can. Zeros is low, but you have to burn through every member before this Titan goes down, and it's just not gonna happen for him here. That's gonna be Belt Slap taking the set.
Look, GG, man. That's all I can say is GG. Smiley Face showed that they are able to contend in the early game, and they can win out in the early game incredibly well as far as fights go, but every single time they take a small engagement, they weren't able to grow it at all. Belt Slap might lose for the first 20 minutes. They take one fight, and then all of a sudden they're 3, 4, 5,000 gold in the lead. If Smiley Face are somehow able to work on their objective focus and their map control, they're going to be one of the best teams in the SCC.
I mean, so much started, I think, and a lot of that was just waiting for Arkle and waiting for Johnny to hit those power spikes. But seeing what Brotz and E-Chrome, like you had just said, highlight, I think there's a lot that, again, comes in with Smiley Face. Part of the reason we got to talk about him so much during the last playoffs was because they kind of surprised everybody. I mean, at the time, they were the open circuit team. They aren't supposed to be as good as they were. They aren't supposed to take a game off of Belt Slap. And since then, that's kind of been proven true. No one has been able to take many games off of Belt Slap, but I think the fact that they are giving them at least this much trouble, pushing them to this length of game, is a good sign for them as they go into the future.
It is, but even then, I don't know if you felt it, because I certainly did. I didn't trust Smiley Face to win out at any point. Even when they were in the lead in the early game, I didn't trust them to be able to push through Belt Slap. It seemed like everything that they got was within Belt Slap's acceptable range of loss, and it really does play out that way. It was almost like clockwork. Every single game at the 20-25 minute mark, Belt Slap says, okay, let's play, and then they start to win. And I think a lot of that is really due to the fact that they know that they can allow Smiley Face to kind of control the early game because there's not much concern of them really pushing their lead.
And I think there's so much that to be said of how many times we saw, specifically early game, a lot of damage and focus onto Johnny, stopping this Kali from maybe excelling as well as it could have early on. And then that just seemed to disappear, at least, through the last few fights or the last few highlights I saw. Johnny was able to run rampant, but that's going to be Belt Slap once again taking that one 2-0. If you like watching Smiley Face, though, you have good news, and that is that they are going to be playing again later against Snake Pit. You'll recognize Cold Llamas, Poppies, who are going to be coming through. That's going to be post-SPL, but another team, I believe Donkey Hoof, joining into this now Challenger circuit as they've risen up from the open circuit through relegations. Going to be throwing a little bit of a loop in there. I think I'm excited to see all of those games, Mifflin, especially as we go forward. The way these teams are adapting in the Challenger circuit, it still feels very European when we're in Europe, but they've definitely grown as the year's gone on.
And they've certainly developed their meta. Gore, I got to give you a shout out there, man. You are an utter professional. You said it completely straight faced. I can't do it. You said Donkey Hoof as a team name and you just didn't break it all. Well played to you, sir. But I think it's interesting to watch these teams because SEC, SOC, both of them, they have to be ahead of the meta. They don't have the same level of team player and mechanical skill as the SBL counterparts, and that means they have to make up for it somehow, some other way. They're playing these unorthodox picks. They're always trying to adjust small things, maybe even jungle pathing. We see are a little bit different from all of these squads. So it's always a very interesting watch to watch these lower tier teams play.
And we'll get to see whether or not they adapt their own meta, which has kind of been what's happening so far in some of these phases, or if some of what's happening in the Pro League trickles down, maybe some of what happens in the Challenger Circuit trickles up, considering we saw that Ao Kwang. I'm excited to see what's going to be coming through, but that's it for the Challenger Circuit today. The Pro League is going to be coming up in just about 37 minutes, so grab your snacks, grab your drinks, get ready in a nice, comfortable, preferably Maxnomic chair, but whatever you happen to have around, and we'll see you then for the SMITE Pro League.